What is up, everybody? Welcome into the Montreal Meander, episode 41 of the Bark and Brown Show. I'm your host, Jacob at Roachism13. On the Twitters, joined as always by my wonderful co-host, Nick Carnes at Carnesies817 on Twitter. Nick, how are we tonight?
Hi. I want to address something right out of the gate because I know that we promised you all if the Bengals won, which I'm still sad about, that it would be officially Mohawk season, and it is. However, I would like to say, so I talked to Jacob, and we have agreed that I am going to follow through with my Mohawk. However, I'm not ready just yet to cut my hair. This is probably the longest I've ever had it in my adult life. So when I do cut my hair, and everyone's pressuring me to cut it at the Super Bowl party, so it might be then. We'll see. But when I am ready to cut my hair, you will get your Mohawk. I'm just not just ready yet. Because I don't know. I'm having some fun with it, right? Have a little fun. Living a little bit.
Well, and I will pay up. I will Fu Manchu it as well. Ooh. As we get a little bit closer when we decide.
Look at your beard. Look at it. It's just looking great.
It's in a good spot, and it's gonna go away. And so we are so thankful. Like, guys, thanks for all the likes, the comments, the subscribes, the interactions, the DMs, the comments. Producer Ed will join us here in just a second. He is monitoring those Twitter comments, so fire away. Fire away if you're on Facebook, fire away if you are on YouTube. We will get to all of the comments. We got plenty of draft talk for you guys tonight, some positional battles. Nick's going to tell you about what he thinks about Hugh Jackson. We got all kinds of things to talk to you guys about as we look forward to the off season. We just have a little bit of fun tonight. I might even have a little bit of a fun game for you guys to play. Just later on. That I've been concocting. But thanks. Just a heads up, moving forward, we did our first Patreon film study for defensive tackles on the past Saturday. We will continue to do these. So the Patreon is $5 a month. We are doing weekly. It looks like going forward, we're also going to do all 22 film reviews of the games once the season comes around. I talked to the Patreon members. They said they'd be down to do some all 22 film review. So we'll rewatch each game together from the all 22 coaches film on the Patreon. We get on here. It gets recorded. It gets recorded live. Last week it was a Saturday at 9:30. It'll probably be the same. We go over some prospects I like for the Browns this week. We're going to do some safety prospects. We're going to watch some film on 3 safeties that I like, which are also the safeties that I will then later highlight in my articles. The D tackles that I wrote on are the D tackles that we did film study on, just a little bit more in depth on those sort of things. So that will happen. The Patreon, $5 a month. Film reviews. I write some articles on there that are exclusive. We do some exclusive early content episodes and some giveaways in a private group chat where we just talk Browns and life and all kinds of cool things like that on the daily. And so most precious thing you can give anybody is your time. So thanks yet again for giving some of your time to us this week.
And not that this is a Zabo Apparel shirt, but they do also do Cavs gear. I know we're a Browns show, but a lot of us are also Cavs fans, and they have all kinds of Cleveland gear that could tickle your fancy. Baseball season's coming up, and Roger was our winner last month, which we are really happy because he says he never wins anything. So now, Roger's a winner. He says he's going to wear it on the Dog Chug tonight. We love our friends over at the Dog Chug. But Zabo is a great place, and you every month, and we have a small, wonderful group of patrons right now. So you got a great chance of winning if you're interested in subscribing. And I always like to say, you know what? I mean, obviously you're always like, oh, please just consider subscribing today or like and all that stuff. But the people that have stuck with us, right, we're coming up slowly but surely. We're gonna before we know it, it's going to be a year of doing shows. And so to all of our current patrons, I just want to say the fact that you've stuck with us is probably the loudest endorsement you could give us. So thank you all for that. It means the world to both of us.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you guys for absolutely everything. Thanks for the talk, the fun, the banter, the witty stuff. I've got an announcement coming up very, very soon. That is as big as I could have. So let's bring on producer Ed and let's see what we got on tonight's show. Ed, how we doing, my friend?
Hey, what's up, guys? Happy Groundhog Day, Commander Day. Washington football team's got a name, and the groundhog I think saw a shadow. So what does that mean? 6 more weeks of bad Browns Twitter. What's that mean, guys? Getting a little scared here, but in honor of Groundhog Day, I got a question for you guys. I just thought of kind of real quick. What is the one thing as a Browns fan that you feel like would be groundhog-ish when it comes to just repeating itself over and over again in your Browns fandom that you would say?
Hugh Jackson coming to ruin my weekdays.
Well, and you know what it is? It's been this way basically my entire Browns fandom. It's quarterback talk.
Just out of nowhere.
Forever. Yeah, Hugh Jackson. Man, that dude just will not. I mean, isn't he a head coach somewhere now? Offensive coordinator?
Grambling State. Head coach.
Yeah, he's head coach at Grambling State.
Go do that. What are you doing?
Go do that.
Who would send your kid there? Hugh Jackson's a coach. It's like dropping them off. It's like, I understand. Look, Grambling State's a great school and everything, and I totally understand that. But
he said, go do that. Leave us alone.
I'm sorry. I don't want to cut you off. But you brought up the Washington uniforms, right? And I have a quick question. Is it just me? They have a W on their. I can't even draw it backwards, but they have a W on their forehead. In one of their,
that a W backwards is also a W forwards. So
that's fair. But is that a thing? Are we putting the logo on our foreheads now?
Buddy, I haven't looked. I haven't seen it.
I think Hugh Jackson had an L.
Pull it up.
So.
You gotta pull it up. It's something.
I will. Let's look at this. Let's do this.
It's not exactly
Washington.
I wouldn't exactly call it the Browns uniform reveal. The Browns did really well with that,
Oh, they do.
They literally have a W on their forehead. What do we do?
It looks like it says
only on the alternate.
Commanders.
Only on the alternate ones.
It looks like MTV's The Challenge with the challenge logo. How it says The Challenge, it looks Commanders with the 2 lines. So maybe they're trying to be hip that way. I don't know.
Sure.
I mean,
our good friend Andrew said he was a little bit late this evening. He was trying to call Grambling State.
That's pretty funny.
You know what that does remind me of? The uniforms that everyone hated from the Browns, right? During that era had Cleveland right across the chest. You know what I'm saying? And then Browns on the pants. It reminds me of that. I don't know.
I don't know why they think that's such a a hip thing. I know with the Jets did that. The Falcons kind of I think are doing that. I think we know who the team is. Yeah, I don't. It's that to me that's kind of like high schoolish. Which honestly I love high school uniforms but I don't really like it on Sundays. So I don't know that. But I'll say one thing, Nick, and I know when you go into it, but I just want to say I think Outkast made a remix. I'm sorry, Hugh Jackson, but 1 in 31 was for real. I mean, he can say what he wants to. And my quick take on that real quick is look, Brian Flores, I think has legitimate arguments, had 2 winning seasons back-to-back for the Dolphins, first time since 2003.
Back-to-back like 7-game win streaks or something stupid like that. And massive win streaks.
And he says verbatim, that's what the owner, Stephen Ross, said to him. So if that's true, then obviously, yes, he definitely has a case. But Hugh Jackson, I think, he undermines that whole, initiative of minority coaches because, look, Hugh, you were horrifically bad, historically bad. And I'm not, look, I don't want to say I'm not there and I'm not privy to all the communications that he had. And I don't want to just say because, he was horrifically bad as a coach that he doesn't have some legitimate points. And maybe he does, maybe he has some receipts that we haven't seen yet. And then that's fair. And hopefully that will come to light because obviously, minority hiring in the NFL could do a lot better. And when we come to the Go For It segment, which I have coming up about halfway during the show, we're going to have some good topics about that. And National Girls and Women's in Sports Day too. We're going to hit on that as well. Yeah. So keep those Twitter comments fired at me and I'll get them on. And you guys, let's have a great show.
Yeah. Thanks.
All right, Ed. We'll talk to you soon, my friend.
Yep.
So we're going to get into some stuff tonight. It is the first big real scouting week of the draft cycle. I'm totally stoked. This is my first true full off season with any sort like going into last off season, I had like 106 followers on Twitter. So it's like my first true off season with any kind of like following that interacts with me or talks. This is the first one with this podcast. We started the Monday after the draft was our first rodeo on this show. So I look at the number 41 and I'm like, is that like that's a factual thing? Like we've been rolling through this for 41 weeks. But so it's a Senior Bowl, guys, and I'm excited. I'm writing articles for the first time. You know, I've got an announcement in regards to some of that stuff coming up here pretty soon that I'm really excited about. We're going to continue to do some dives. Now, I know the Senior Bowl isn't as big for Browns as it is for others because the Browns do have these age guardrails situation. And the Senior Bowls are guys that are like 22, 23, 24. If you're over 22, they've taken a couple of guys over 22. I think Richard LeCount and Demetric Felton were 23. I want to say I read that somewhere. So that is a potential thing. Okay, we're going to give a couple shout outs. We got Michael Cooch, Greg Blair, Roger, MC Lawrence, and Kelly tuning in. Hey, to all of you amazing people. And sorry to Michael, who I know I just butchered your last name and I'm a dick. So there's that. So guys, I recorded the Senior Bowl practices. I haven't got to watch them today. I got home, I worked out, and I jumped on here with you guys. So I have the Senior Bowl practices recorded for today. They're going to get recorded tomorrow. I'm going to watch the Senior Bowl this weekend. But that's where we're at. We are finally at. So what do you think, Nick? We're finally being, because for the Browns, nothing has really been going on, right? And for a couple of weeks. So how do you feel that we're finally into some tangible things happening? A football game that has bearing on the draft, and then the combine and all that other stuff is going to be coming up. So, and I know that there's playoffs, and boy, the playoffs were yet again fun. Again, greatest playoffs I've watched in my lifetime.
I think so.
We'll touch on those again as well.
I think for people who don't know, this regime has definitely prioritized drafting the younger players because you got to think about it. So unless they're a first rounder, right, it's going to be a 4-year deal. And so then when you draft a 21 or a 22-year-old, when you're extending them, like typically your contract extension length is probably going to be anywhere from like 3 to 5 years. So at that point, you're talking about being in the NFL for like 7-8 years. So you're still not on that cusp of 30. And I think that's like something that isn't talked about that much about Andrew Berry, because we're still learning a lot about them. But one trend that has been there is they're drafting the younger players. So with the Senior Bowl, there's not as many guys that the Browns would typically draft.
I've heard Pete Smith talk about it, Stephen Thomas, Jeff Lloyd, Jake Burns. They've all kind of talked about the interesting thing about this one being, and I hadn't thought about it until I'd heard these guys talk about it, was the fact that with the COVID opt-out year, you have an older draft class. Mm-hmm. So there is a legitimate chance, I think, that we see some of those guardrails bent. I don't think it's going to change the first round pick. The first round pick is going to be like 21, maybe 22. It's going to be someone young. It's going to be like, that's why I've been saying that I can realistically see the guy being Drake London because of his ceiling, his position, his talent now, and he's 20. So that was something that I had made a comment a couple of weeks back on Twitter on why I could. And I'm not saying he's wide receiver 1. I still think wide receiver 1's Garrett Wilson. I was watching a whole bunch of clips that people were putting on Twitter. I fell down a Garrett Wilson route running rabbit hole on Twitter last weekend. Nice. It was, by the way, highly suggest doing that. It's a lot of fun. Garrett Wilson is one of the better route. I've only been scouting, I say that in quotes because I know I'm not like this high paid expert or anything like that, but I've only been really scouting the NFL draft for the last 5 years. I've just been obsessed about it the last 4 or so years. I'm not sure if there have been many. I'm not saying he's the best route runner I've ever scouted, but I'm not saying I don't know of more than a handful that have been this polished or more polished as a route runner than Garrett Wilson.
You asked what was exciting about this whole Senior Bowl, and basically, this is kicking off the process, right? I think
that's the exciting part for me.
Yeah. I think so. Obviously, I'm not as in depth with all the prospects as you are, but when I start to think about draft season, I think the number one piece I go to is, okay, so you want to identify what the Browns need, right?
Yes.
And obviously
And when
you're
they
gonna,
need it, because like I want to be clear with some people. Some of my tweets about D tackles and stuff is all day 2 because I don't think they're taking one day 1. So yeah, that's key too.
but just for me, the fun part is you really look at the Browns, and aside from building depth, there's not like a whole lot of truly glaring needs, in my opinion. Like obviously, there's huge question marks at defensive tackle and wide receiver, right?
Some
But
edge depth.
yeah, and of course, and edge, but at least you can put on the word depth, assuming
Yeah.
Clowney. And
Right.
so I think that's kind of what I'm most excited about is in general in the past before this regime and even John Dorsey to an extent, although I don't. That's a whole separate story. It's kind of getting to the point where the Browns just have an overall solid team, and you can really start. I think for the first time, this is honestly the first time in probably I don't even know that you can really say, okay, we're building there's a foundation here. We're really building on something. And that's kind of exciting to because nobody ever lasts long enough to have a plan that you see through.
You know what's actually funny about that? We haven't talked about it so much on the show as much as I have talked like to my dad and I think me and you have probably had this conversation offline a few times. Saying that we have somebody coming back for the 3rd season, like I get it that Hugh Jackson did. I get it.
Yeah.
But we were angry about that.
Yeah.
So the fact that we are looking at and he had a different GM, right? We had moved on to John Dorsey and things were somewhat different because it was a half of a new regime.
Yeah.
To say that we have a regime that we're happy is returning for a 3rd situation, 3rd go is just like, sometimes I stop and I think about that and I'm like, this is what you have to do. You have to give these guys time to do their thing. Like I an advocate to fire Freddie after 1 year? Yeah, because we should have never hired him. But you know what I mean?
Yeah.
The thing is, we are looking at a team that was able to set the groundwork and is able to follow up the groundwork. This is something I think that builds off of what you just said. We're looking at a situation where you're going to be able to take flyers on guys that are interesting.
Yeah.
So to me, what does that mean? And I'll ask you if you agree with this. What does that mean to me? And then I've got some YouTube comments as well as some Twitter comments. We'll catch up on those in just a second. So what that means to me is I look at a guy like Logan Hall, right? I did him as part of my film study. I did a little small write-up as him as one of the profiles that I gave with Couch Guy Sports. It's pinned to the top of my profile on Twitter at Roachism13 if you have not and would like to check that out. Logan Hall is this guy that and Pete Smith kind of was the guy that I heard talk about him first. And he pointed out that he's like a base end, right? Like he's a D tackle. I want to say 275 is somewhere in that range is where he's looking at. So he's a little bit sized. And the thing about that is that he can play inside and out. So more likely than not on first down, you don't want Logan Hall as your D tackle trying to stop the run, right? You want Logan Hall in third down when you are pinning your ears back and rushing the passer. He's next to Miles or Clowney with the other one on the other side, pinning their ears back because he's a little bit bigger and stronger, but yet he is a very good athletic pass rusher, right? So he has a specific skill set going into the NFL. I'm not crazy about Logan Hall as a one-tech nose. Don't want him doing it. Not regularly. I just don't think he has the build or skill set to do it. Okay. In the past, you couldn't take flyers on guys like that because you needed a guy that could do absolutely everything because you didn't have a guy that could do some things. Now, you would have to do something which I would love to steal BJ Hill from the Bengals. I would love to stick that mountain of a man. Now, granted, I got burned the last time we signed a nose tackle from Cincinnati, so I know what y'all are going to say, and you're right. But I would love to steal that and start piecing in role players. You're finally there because you have Miles. I think they will re-sign Jadeveon Clowney. So you're able to take a guy where you're like, listen, I know he doesn't do this, but he really does this. And you're able to potentially, because Logan Hall, the way he's testing, he could very well test into the second round. So you may have to take this guy who is more just he can split out to end to give a break to Clowney or Miles, and then rush from the defensive tackle. So he's limited, at least initially, in what he would be able to contribute. And you potentially, because of his upside, need to take him really early. The Browns are finally able to take players like that. That is an interesting player to me. Just like Drake London is an interesting player to me.
I like that. You know what? I hadn't really thought about that until you said it. But you asked me what interesting is to me, and I think constant turnover in the front office and coaching staff also led to constant roster turnover, right? And so when you're installing new schemes and new philosophies constantly, you need players that fit that. And so I feel like for decades, really, the Browns constantly would switch out coaches, and this coach believes in these attributes, and this coach believes in this.
They would change from a 3-4 to a 4-3, and you have to get totally different types of nose tackles.
Always. And so you never got to maybe you'd bring in players that fit what the coaches want to do, but there's just not enough time, money, or assets to bring in complementary pieces to one another, right?
In 1 or 2 years.
Yeah. Like for example, if you go from a 3-4 to a 4-3, you're probably not bringing in 4 of your ideal front 4 to play that scheme in a season, right? You just can't, or more than likely you can't. But because the Browns have been playing
not effectively anyway.
You'd have to give up a lot and that kind of thing. But because the Browns now have been building on the same offense and the same defense, all of a sudden it's you start to say, okay, well, we've I'm trying to think about it. Like for the secondary, for example, right? The expectation.
The big safeties. He wants to play the big 3 safeties. Yeah.
Yeah. And last year you saw a large additions in there. And like the players that I think about, you can bring in. What?
We have breaking news.
Ooh, tell me.
The Minnesota Vikings are zeroing in and plan on hiring Rams offensive coordinator Kevin O'Connell as their head coach. The deal can't be finalized until after the Super Bowl.
Does Kevin O'Connell have any Browns ties? Am I crazy?
Yes, he does.
I knew it. I knew that name.
Kevin O'Connell used to be a quarterback coach. I want to see.
Yeah, Kevin O'Connell.
I think Ed could probably figure this out. Ed, when was the Brown? When did Kevin O'Connell coach for the Browns? He is looking it up. I'm pretty sure he was the quarterback coach at one time, but Ed will find out for us. All right, I'm going to catch up on some comments. I hate to interrupt you like that, but I thought.
Oh no, you're right.
Very important.
Okay. February 7th, 2015. Sorry, I found it and I wanted to say. Yeah.
Kelly asks if this draft considered an offense or defensive draft. We know it lacks really stud quarterbacks. Ooh, I'm going to get back to that because I got a couple of other real quick questions to answer, and I'm going to bring Ed on because there's a question for Ed, and I want him to answer that, Kelly, but I'm going to circle back to that because I have some thoughts on the quarterbacks based on some things I've read. I have yet to watch any of the Senior Bowl practices. So next week, I will have watched all the Senior Bowl practices and the Senior Bowl, and I'll be able to talk a little bit more on that because I don't want to speak totally out my butt. Shout out to Eddie Mack. He's watching. Hey, my good friend over there, Mr. Eddie. And Ed says 2 Eds are better than 1. So there you go.
I just want to say, Jacob, to finish my thought. I remember reading an article that AJ Green came to the Browns because of Joe Woods. There were like, and so like when you build up that continuity and like all of that, like Hudson, for example, like you could say to yourself, okay, we have trust in these coaches because they've been successful, so we will trust them to develop players that they, maybe have some flaws or some scouting reports aren't ideal, but that your specific staff can develop them. And we've seen that with AJ Green, and Hudson played well towards the end of the year. So that's the kind of thing that I'm excited about.
Yeah, absolutely. Cancel Anime says Garrett Wilson at 13 praying for Barry Magic.
Yes,
Points out that he went to the same high school at Lake Travis as Baker Mayfield did. That is important. Andrew brings up a good point about bringing McDowell back. I will continue to say the same thing I've said about McDowell, and that is I will reserve judgment until I fully understand what happened, because he is not just saying I did this. He is claiming foul play, things like that. So I will reserve judgment until then. Ed is going to come on now for a question. And then I think we're going to do Ed's go for it while he's on. We'll do his go for it. And then I'm going to circle back to your question, Kelly, because I think it's actually a bigger answer than what I wanted to right away. Mr. Ed, there's a question on there. Dan says, why the hell do you not have a tie on?
Well, Dan, the answer is because of the competition between Nick and Jacob, they ended in a tie. So I thought, well, since they are wearing the tie, that I would not be tonight. So that is why I'm not wearing a tie. Good question, though. Good question.
The best part is I knew the answer to that. It still laughed. Like I knew what he was going to say, and I
feel naked. I do. It's just,
I know.
Can we just say that between the three of us, not one of us picked a Super Bowl team. The NFL is so hard.
Especially this year, dude. Especially this year. This year has been just a nightmare. Like, I am so glad that sports gambling wasn't legalized in Ohio yet, because I would be.
We all said OBJ was going to the Super Bowl this year, but as a Cleveland Browns.
I did say the OBJ revenge tour, and Ed tried to throw it in my face the other day, and I was like, well, sure, he's in the Super Bowl. He's getting revenge. I was just wrong on who it was for.
I watched his interview where post game, he was like, I told you. And they were like interviewing him. And like, honestly, even though I've been like upset with him because of the report that came out, like it was hard not to like feel for the guy that like, he's fought back from all those injuries.
He has. He's worked his ass off. Like,
I just wish it was with us, man.
I just wish it would have been different. I just wish it would have ended different. That's it.
Yeah, me too.
If he wanted out, he wanted out. That's fine. I just don't like the way it happened. So we will transition into my favorite segment of the week. Mr. Ed has some go for it's. So Ed, fire away.
Okay. Well, obviously with the whole Brian Flores and Hugh Jackson, and but I think the heart of the matter is minority hiring in the NFL, which obviously 70% of the players in the NFL are African American, and not too many. There's only been like a 19 head coaches that have been African Americans, in the 101 years. So I mean that's kind of abysmal there. But my question was
low. I didn't realize it was that low.
It's that low, yeah. My question to you guys is, we have the Rooney Rule and everything like that, but would you guys be for this? Okay, because I'm all for rewarding, excellence, rewarding wins, not rewarding losses, is what's been reported. So if a team hires a black coach, and that team does well,
or any minority for that matter.
Well, anybody, yeah. And I know it's Black History Month, but any minority.
Yeah.
Would you guys go for this proposal? A team with a minority head coach is successful, and say for instance they get to the Super Bowl or heaven, or the playoffs or whatever like that. They're obviously going to have a lower draft pick. But would you be for rewarding that team that took that chance with extra second and third round picks until we get the situation, improved?
Okay, so I actually love that you phrased it the way you phrased it, because I did want to speak on this. I'm not going to speak on Flores just because. Just the same with Malik McDowell. I want to wait to see, because he says he's got all this evidence, all this other things like that, and so I will just let that play out before we know. Do I think something went on? Yeah, something shady went on. He's not going to go on. You know what I mean? Like, he's not a narcissist, Hugh Jackson. So he's not going to go out there and no matter what you think, how true or not true, something went on. Something shady went on with Brian Flores, and it pisses me off. So, but I'm not gonna. But what I'm gonna say is that the Rooney Rule is a joke. It is absolutely a joke. It has always been. Do you remember that Leslie Frazier got every head coaching opportunity?
Yes.
Interview for every head coaching job for like 2 years before he finally got one with the Vikings because of the Rooney Rule. He's like the poster child of the like Rooney Rule like candidate or whatever you want to call it. Like he got screwed over very many times, and I don't think he was ever the guy for the job or whatever, whatever you want to see, whatever you want to say. I'm not sure if your proposal is the way to go, but I am for incentivizing it. Like, I don't know what the answer is because Cancel Anime says that seems wrong. But they do have that for executives. We are getting a 3rd round pick this year and next year because a minority candidate has been hired as a GM from our front office. So there is already a type of rule in place. We literally have seen it played out. So my point is, if you can do it there, yes, you can do it here. I think it all starts, some people says it starts with ownership. Yeah, I think it does. You have a bunch of old, grumpy, rich white dudes running the NFL. Those are the facts, right? I don't know what the answer is. The Rooney Rule is a joke. It's always been a joke. It's not helping. Refinement needs to be made. I'm not sure if your proposal is exactly what it should be, picks or something, but there should be something because it is a problem, period.
I like the fact that, and it doesn't have to be, but I just like that we should incentivize, winning. All this talk about getting paid for losing, and that's just it's detrimental. It's detrimental to what we're trying to get.
Yours is interesting because the actual rule right now is the Browns are going to get those picks whether Quetzy succeeds or not.
Right.
So that caveat when it comes to coaching almost truly promotes the best man for the job that they always.
And that's what I'm trying to get
across. That's a great. Yeah, no, I like that. I'm
going to get yourself into it, are you?
Yeah, I'll go for a version of it. Let's put it that way.
I was listening to ESPN radio the other day in the morning as I was on my way to work, and I think it was Keyshawn Johnson who pointed out every offensive involved person that has ever known Sean McVay is getting every one of them.
Yeah.
And before Eric Bieniemy was involved with Andy Reid, Matt Nagy got a job, and the name of the former Philadelphia coach, whose name I can never remember,
Doug
got
Peterson.
a job. Yeah. And suddenly, so they played a clip of Andy Reid, and Andy Reid said that Eric Bieniemy calls the plays now, right? Because a lot of people try to give Andy Reid credit for all the Chiefs offense and all the Chiefs everything. Andy Reid literally said that Eric Bieniemy calls the plays, right?
I think he did this year because I did notice that this weekend. I saw him. I literally saw him calling plays.
Okay, so the previous 2 coaches of Andy Reid got head coaching jobs, the previous 2 offensive coordinators, and every offensive coordinator who knows Sean McVay, the 2 hottest sets of offenses in the NFL, they just pluck those coordinators, and Eric Bieniemy suddenly, for whatever reason, for years now, has not been able to get a job, and it really made me think about it, right? And if it's hard to wonder, right? What's the difference between Doug Peterson and Matt Nagy and Eric Bieniemy? I'm just saying. I don't know. But Ed, so it does make me a little uncomfortable to disrupt the competitive balance of the NFL with picks, and obviously the Browns are benefactors of that. So I'm not sure if picks is the right way to go about it. But
doing something is.
Yeah, I do think.
I agree. Yes.
And you know what? I was going to make a tweet about this, but I wasn't sure how to word it correctly. I just want to say, the Browns have an African American head coach. The Browns have an African American GM, the youngest in the business. That he brought in another African American, Kwesi Adolfo-Mensah, who also just got
2. Don't forget, Glenn Cook got a bunch of interviews too.
Yes. And previously, for whatever you want to say about Hugh Jackson, right? They often say that African American coaches get way shorter of time than white coaches do. They gave Hugh Jackson more time than any coach in recent memory, considering his record. So I just want to say it's kind of cool to be a fan of the Cleveland Browns, who are.
I do think that in that aspect, I think the Browns have been
very
I think the Browns have truly gone for best who they thought was the best guy for the job.
Yeah. Whereas, obviously there's some bias in other hiring practices. So yes, Ed, I would go for it. I just don't know.
That's
the correct solution.
You know what? I think we're all in agreement. We're going to go for some action that would incentivize what we're doing.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so we're just not sure how.
Okay, fair enough. Let's go with the second question, and it's because of National Girls and Women's in Sports Day. We love our women, and we love it, especially when they love sports. I mean, there's nothing better than hey, it's best of both worlds. My wife Kelly, she loves sports, and that's the one glue that we have that that keeps us together. Well, that and Sundays get a little iffy sometimes, depending on with the Brown situation.
Depending on the outcome, yeah, sure.
Yeah, right. But that's
in my household too. Yeah.
yeah. So would you guys go for this? Like we see, especially with the Browns, we see a lot of minorities in the front office, which is always a good thing. But what do you think? These NFL owners and such, they make billions and billions. They can practically print money. But I would like to see, and I don't know how you guys feel about this, but maybe them ponying up some of that money and getting with these, schools that, obviously they use schools for, the minor leagues. Let's be real. Ohio State is the minor leagues to the NFL. With these schools and start more programs and undergraduate studies for women in business, but with a sports emphasis. Because, there's a lot of, because you see like with obviously the Harvards and everything like that, a lot of these, new GMs and stuff that with Andrew Berry. Well, Andrew Berry's got some football background, but, but some of them, they go to Wall Street and now it's, analytics driven with even like Paul DePodesta. But wouldn't it be nice to see some Paul DePodestas be some Mrs. Podestas, some women in the front office. So I was basically saying, would you guys go for, a more collaborative effort to get undergraduate business focus for women in sports?
Yeah, absolutely. I don't care who you are, your race, your gender, your religion, any of it. If you like sports and you want to work in sports, you want to talk sports, you want to talk hockey, you want to talk football, I don't care what it is. You should be able to do it without being hated on about something you can't control. I'm a white dude, and I know my life is somewhat easier as a white dude, especially in sports, talking sports.
Yeah.
Nobody, everybody should have the same abilities to do whatever they want. That is the American dream, period.
I completely agree. I saw Cameron Justice post a post today, about
shout out to her. Yes, she's was on the Barkley Browns, one of the
former guests of the show. Bless her heart.
I chimed in many times.
Right. But she was talking, and honestly, I think she is one of the best members of the Cleveland media.
He's
by
two thumbs up, Cammy.
She does a great job. And anyway, you can continue to involve. Yeah, I completely agree that being inclusive, right? It's good for everybody, right? The more people that are involved in sports that like all of it, the bigger it gets, right? And and honestly, here we are doing a show, hoping for people to join us and talk to us, and that's all that we do with social media. It's like you want to talk to people about the thing you're passionate about. So the more people, the more women, the all of that. I'm all for it. I like that. Good job, Ed.
All right. Cancel Anime's got one, and I think he kind of echoes what we're at. This type of talk gets into muddy waters, but I don't think you should get special treatment because of your race. I'm all for having more minority GMs and head coaches. I'm just not sure how. I think that's kind of where we all came to the conclusion is nobody should get special treatment for something like that because it doesn't matter. What matters is if you're a good football coach, not the color of your skin. But the problem is it is evident throughout history that to some people it does. Yeah. It's just it is because you can't tell me that white coaches know more about football. I don't think that's true. maybe this white coach knows more football than this guy. Sure. Yeah. Bill Belichick's probably the greatest coach of all time. And he just so happens to be white, but that is not relevant. So I think I agree with you. You shouldn't get special treatment one way or another, but you got to find a way to make it fair. Because it's just not. I don't think it is.
Here's my feeling on that. Like I totally, in a perfect society, that is absolutely true. It should always like Dr. Martin Luther King. It's it's the content of the character, the merit of the person, and not this. And I totally get that. What I'm here to do, obviously, is to bring up topics. I'm not. I give my opinion somewhat, but every case is an individual case by case basis.
Yes.
Hugh Jackson's saying one thing, and he may be totally wrong. Where Brian Flores probably is not wrong. So once again, and you got to they want to be lumped together, but you can't. You got to get and that's why, Jacob, you're absolutely correct. Let's find out the details. Let's let it play out before we make any judgments. The only thing we're trying to do, and I want people on both sides, however you feel about this, when you're tuning into us, we're trying to be a non-judgmental and just raise awareness of it. Maybe people think that we're just totally wrong and we're being idiots, and it doesn't matter. Yes, it really shouldn't matter, but it does, because there's a reason why they're talking about it. There's a reason why it's a big stuff on SportsCenter. Whether you like it or not, maybe in 100 years it won't be. But the fact that it is something that's going on now, we can't. Sometimes I always say this: just because you talk racially doesn't mean you're racist. And so just because you're bringing up points doesn't mean you're one way or the other. But I think these discussions and these topics definitely deserve to be talked about in mature manners and fashions. And I hope that this show and this platform is a way that we can get this out and disseminate to our audience. And guess what? However you take it is fine. And that's fine. We're all Cleveland Browns fans. And that's the one thing that bonds us. But at the same time, these social issues and stuff, we can't just, close our eyes and pretend like this stuff isn't going on. And it is affecting our Cleveland Browns, as we just saw Hugh Jackson on SportsCenter. And, and honestly, I'm very sick of seeing that guy. And this is a Groundhog's Day thing, right? Go away, Hugh Jackson.
Monday was Hugh Jackson Day, as our good friend Ross would say.
Yes. Those of you who know me a little more know I've always had a soft spot for the Jacksonville Jaguars. And thus, when I was coming up, their quarterback was Byron Leftwich. And I know that he is a candidate to be their head coach right now. I really, really hope that Byron Leftwich gets
weird that I do too. Isn't it so weird that we don't have all the coaches hired yet?
How it's completely unrelated. You know how you're getting old? When players you watched play are gonna become head coaches.
Hey, do you want to hear something?
I remember Byron Leftwich getting carried when he was at Marshall.
Marshall,
that bum leg,
and they still won that
carrying
game.
him, going down the
I'll
field.
never forget it.
I'm going to give you something that's funny about Kevin O'Connell, right?
Okay.
So he's now the head coach of the Minnesota Vikings. So he'll be the head coach of the Minnesota Vikings going into the first year of Tom Brady's retirement. He was drafted to be Tom Brady's backup 8 years into Tom Brady's career, and now is a head coach.
That's crazy.
After the same season that Brady finally quit playing.
Wow.
And Wikipedia has already updated it. According to Wikipedia, he is the head coach of the Minnesota Vikings.
It's everywhere. They just can't do it until after the Super Bowl.
Is he older or younger than Kevin Stefanski? Does anyone know?
He was born in 1985. So let's see here.
I think he's older. Yeah, he's a little older.
Yeah.
I was just curious because
age 30. No, actually, he's age 36. He's 36.
Okay, so I think he's like a year.
He's younger. Stefanski's like 38 or 39.
Okay.
So, interestingly enough, it's the Senior Bowl and we're scouting, and teams don't have coaches. That's important.
Yeah.
Does Miami have a coach?
No.
See, I keep forgetting about them.
They had a good one.
Jacksonville, Miami, Houston.
That's it, right?
I think. Right, because Minnesota does now. Does Chicago?
Minnesota
Chicago
does. Vegas does. Chicago does.
Eberflus or whatever his name is.
Eberflus.
We interviewed.
Sorry,
him.
Eberflus.
Denver has one. Denver is going to get Aaron Rodgers by hiring his quarterback coach.
There you go.
It probably works.
Right? Hey, I don't know. But you guys brought up Hugh Jackson, and I don't have a lot I want to say on it, but I just have a little nuance.
Oh, there it is.
Let's do it. Let's do it.
A little bit of nuance. Okay. So Hugh Jackson is talking about is trying to lump himself in with Brian Flores as this guy that was incentivized to lose. He really
And then
danced
straight up said on Sports Center when they asked, "Were you offered to be paid?" No.
No. Okay. So let's say that Hugh Jackson is even half telling the truth, and he's incentivized to lose. Okay, let's say that.
Okay.
There's a few pieces of the story here. When Hugh Jackson was first hired, he was a leading candidate for not only the Browns but also the Giants.
Yes.
Okay. So it's not like the Browns were his only opportunity and his only job. It's not like he was forced into a job where we're going into it. The goal was to lose. Okay. And the next piece of this is if he's going into a second head coaching job. So this is it, right? Whoever gets a third head coaching job. I couldn't imagine it's
unless you retire, probably not.
Yeah, like Bill Parsons, somebody like that.
Yeah, but if you've been fired twice, right?
You're not right.
So going into that, like if you know that you're going to be like the plan is to lose,
and we all knew that. Everyone,
right? Yes.
This is your last. Like there is no planet in which you could think to yourself, okay, I'm going to lose for 2 years, and then we're going to come out the other side, right? And then we're going to start trying to win because in theory you can say that, but we've all seen this in Cleveland, especially for a long time. Head coaches don't get along here, right? And if you do, like you did, by the time you get to the end of it, by the time you get you're laughing. You turn yourself into a laughing stock by losing, right? No matter what you want to think, no matter what, you're turning yourself into a laughing stock. B, the players that you're with are no longer going to listen to anything you have to say because you're losing, right? You lose the locker room, you lose the media, right? And then obviously you lose the fan base. Who did not want Hugh Jackson fired by the end of it? Hiram Boyd, maybe. A shout out to Hiram Boyd for he's still planet Hugh Jackson. So good for you.
Well, we didn't have a W on our helmet like the new Commanders do. Sorry.
Buddy, don't get me started on them because I don't even know what.
So it's like so you're going into it, even if you're signing up for this, you're sorry. You are destining yourself to get fired and never have a job again. You're giving up your career basically if you're signing up for this plan. So let's say that the plan actually was to lose, and then you come out the other side in year 3, and then you're gonna start winning. Okay, all right, Hugh, I'll buy that. Okay, you drafted a quarterback number 1 overall. You did not even give him first team reps to try and earn the starting position. Why did you draft a number 1?
You won the backup job. We saw it on Hard Knocks. He called him into the office.
That's good.
Baker, you won the backup job.
What over Drew Stanton?
Wow.
You're not trying to win. You're not trying to win. Why'd you draft a guy first overall? What quarterback do you take first overall? And you don't even give him the opportunity to be a starter. You're not trying to win. You're an idiot. Okay, so all right, so fine. Let's write that off, right? First overall pick.
We're starting Carlos Hyde over Nick Chubb.
That's the last piece, right? How blind do you have to be? I mean, no disrespect to Carlos Hyde. Fine,
I love Ohio State, but come on,
had a long NFL career, longer than most NFL running backs have, right? Okay,
good player, good player.
Carlos Hyde.
Nick Chubb remains the only running back in NFL history to have over 100 yards on 3 or less carries. You literally, even if you didn't see it in camp, you saw it in the Raiders game, and you still wouldn't give the guy playing time. I mean, so if we're to buy that you were losing on purpose, okay, let's say we buy that, okay? When it's time to win, even when it was time to win, you didn't give your first overall pick a chance to even show he was ready to be the starter, okay? And you ignored one of the best running backs in the NFL, okay? So that's not intentional. That's not setting you up to fail. That's on you. That's
on
you
you. That's on
being
you.
incompetent.
Damn it, Ed.
So
Sorry.
your whole argument's out of the water because when you were supposed to be winning, you're still an idiot. You still did nothing. It's the luckiest chance you ever had in your life, right? And you gave it away by not even giving Baker a that. You know what? As soon as Baker came in that Jets game and led them back to victory and played that well, he should have been fired that day. Because Tyrod Taylor, the Browns tied the Steelers that year with Tyrod Taylor doing virtually nothing. I honestly wonder.
Stop talking about ties. I'm missing mine.
I'm sorry. I honestly wonder if Baker starts from week 1, right? Because they tied the Steelers and they almost beat the Saints. I wonder what would have happened with you. I do. I wonder.
Hey, I didn't know that there was something that could get Nick more fired up than the Raiders, but we found it.
The Raiders.
I hate you.
So can we talk about that Raiders game that it featured you?
Oh, I hate him so much.
I'm sorry. I was thinking about that. I was like, oh my God.
They ruined Baker Mayfield's first start.
After Chubb's 3 touchdown game against Oakland, he still didn't give him playing time. It was pathetic. Yeah. He also says if Baker starts from week 1 that year, they probably make the playoffs. Okay. Ed, we're going to put you off for just a little second. I want to answer Kelly's question just in case there's any Twitter comments, and then
yes, sir.
Fly right into my draft corner real quick.
Great third edition, guys. Go for it.
Thanks, guys, for letting me die. Hugh Jackson is one of my most passionate topics, so thank you. I appreciate the time.
I want to answer Kelly's question about quarterbacks. Because I've seen some things, I've seen some clips. I still, like I said, I haven't been able to dive into the actual practices and the film and what's going on. I have one quarterback I kind of like. I have watched the highlight reels of these quarterbacks. I have not really watched film on these quarterbacks yet. There's one that I like, and I keep like teasing it to the Patreon because I keep not wanting to talk about it, but I'm going to have to talk about it soon. But I want to answer her question, and that was that it lacks ready stud quarterbacks. Okay, I think it does, but I'm seeing a lot of people, and I told the guys this pregame, I like Benjamin Albright a lot, and he was saying that for a draft that doesn't have a lot of really good quarterbacks, looking at these quarterbacks in the Senior Bowl, he's like, they're not ready, but like, if you have patience, there's some guys that could do some things. I'm hearing a lot of good things about Malik Willis. I know that I've always been like, no, I don't like Malik Willis, only if he's there at 44. And that's because, once again, I think there's bigger issues. Like, I think any of these quarterbacks that you take, Malik Willis being one of them, because I think he has some mechanics issues and some things that he needs to work on, which can be coached. He's got a lot of talent, but the problem is these quarterbacks, I don't think any of them are ready to contribute this year. Because of that, I'm still not unless you're in a total rebuild and you have a veteran quarterback like an Andy Dalton when you draft Justin Fields. I'm not using my first round pick, especially coming off of a year where this team was 8-9. And made the playoffs the year before. I'm not using my first round pick on a guy that's just probably not going to be ready. So that's like my situation when it comes to quarterbacks. Now, what like you took Lamar Jackson when you had Joe Flacco, when you traded back in because he fell. Is that something you're interested in? Yeah, I might be interested in that. Like, is Malik Willis hanging around at 30 and the Browns trade back in with that extra third round pick or whatever and take him and I'd be okay with something? Hell yeah, I'd be okay. I don't want to take a quarterback at 13 because I just don't think they're going to contribute this year. I'm not saying that none of these quarterbacks are better than Baker Mayfield this year. That's what I think. None of them are going to be better this year than a healthy Baker. Could they be better players overall? Yeah, they could. They really could. I haven't dove enough into them, but I'm hearing these things that, like, if you're patient with some of these quarterbacks, I think they're going to pan out. So that opportunity is there. Like a guy like Carson Strong, there he is. There. That is the quarterback I like, is Carson Strong. He's the guy that I like a lot. 6'4", 220, big, strong arm, can't move. He can not move. But, like, I could see some of these quarterbacks potentially have better careers. if they go into good situations and they develop. That's a possibility. But my first round pick this year, I want to contribute this year. And I don't think any of the quarterbacks can contribute at a higher level than 6 can this year, at least. If ever.
It's like a super awkward thing because based on what you've said, Jacob, you would think that you would want to take a quarterback like in the second round and later, right? Especially with a quarterback, the most valuable thing is that rookie deal, right? So you want that 5th-year option. So it's like,
yes,
and you're only
getting what Baltimore did with Lamar was brilliant. Yeah. He ends up falling, and they trade back in, and they get that 5th-year option.
Mm-hmm. So that's kind of awkward. I don't know. I'm more inclined to trust your judgment here and really just kind of see what they do. Because I mean, do we really know? Like Andrew Berry really hasn't ever had to deal with quarterback controversy, so this will be an interesting test.
No, he came in with a guy that had one good year and one bad year, had another really good year, had another bad year, and now you're like looking at it like, I don't know. Cancel Anime says, I don't think any of these quarterbacks will be better long term than Baker, and you could be correct. You could be 100% correct. I just want to make it clear that I feel pretty definitive that none of them would be better this year. And like I said, maybe ever they won't be. But I don't know. This year, if you truly think, I think Baker is the better option this year. And if he turns out to have another stinker year and that's who he is, next year's quarterback class, from everything I can see right now, is loaded.
Okay.
So if you're going to do it that way, then just play it out. And just, if you think he's not, I don't know. Like, could Malik Willis be better this year? Sure, but I don't think he's ready to start week 1.
Would you be more excited if they traded back up into the first round to take a quarterback they wanted to develop, or would you be more excited if they traded back up into the first round to take a defensive tackle they really liked?
I don't take a defensive tackle in the first round. I'm not giving up assets for that. The only thing I'm moving up back into the first round for is someone dynamic that falls.
Okay. Maybe a second wide receiver. I don't know.
Yeah, like a wide receiver. Okay. I don't think they're gonna I don't think any of these. This is not a good defensive tackle class. Like, you got Jordan Davis and then some dudes that could contribute. Like, I love Perion Winfrey. You guys know that if you watch that kind of thing. This is kind of my mini draft corner here. I love Perion Winfrey, but I'm not taking him in the first round. But he did weigh in at 303 pounds at the Senior Bowl, and I thought his playing weight was like 290. So weighing in over 300 was literally huge for me when it comes to that sort of thing. I like that a lot. I'm not taking him in the third. I'm taking him maybe at 44. I'm taking a D tackle. Like, in a lot of my mocks, if I take a D tackle higher than 78, it's because I trade back in the first and gain a second round pick and use that on a defensive tackle.
Got it.
So repeat the question to me. Would I rather trade up for say it again.
Would you be more excited if the Browns traded back up into the first round and took a quarterback they liked? Or would you be more excited if the Browns traded back up into the first round and took a dynamic player, pick whatever position? Right, they're trading back up in the first round. Would you rather them trade up for a quarterback, or would you rather them trade up for basically any other position that has a guy that you?
Analytically speaking, quarterback's the only one that makes sense, because if you don't have a quarterback, you don't have anything. Like, I think that's true of a team as a whole. So analytically speaking, that makes sense. Okay. Let me think about that. So if they trade, this is the thing. I see this said all the time. And that is, oh, sorry. I got distracted by a comment that was my issue. I apologize. we can't just say, I trust Andrew Berry completely. And then when it comes to like potentially quarterback and him moving on from what we want, say except now, right? I trust Andrew Berry in the vision. If he trades back up for a quarterback, I trust that it's the right decision. That's where I'm at. I think he is the right person for this job. I think that's where a quarterback should go. If you're going to take a quarterback high, it's going to be like 29, 30. That's where I think. I don't of the two, I'd rather be trading back up for somebody else.
Okay.
Because I'm not in. You're going to have to give up picks to get back in, right? So you're going to essentially that traded back into pick is a multiple round pick.
Yeah.
I don't think any of those quarterbacks are worth that. Now, if you trade back and you're at like 29 and you have an early pick or something, or like you take a quarterback at 29 and then trade up from 44 to get a receiver, like that could be fun. But I don't think any of these quarterbacks would be trade back. Like if Malik Willis is at 31, maybe that might be interesting. That could be interesting.
Okay.
I would rather if they trade back in, it's for some kind of dynamic guy. Like what if something stupid happened where you took Drake London and then like Treylon Burks just fell to 29 and you were just like, holy shit, like let's take Drake London and Treylon Burks.
Yep.
Like how stupid would that be?
That'd be awesome.
Like,
I would love that.
Chuck it in the fucking bucket and let's do it. Like, like let's do it.
And then Donovan Peoples-Jones is like your third wide receiver, and you're just or Anthony Schwartz, and you're just.
Well, think about this. Think about this. Put Treylon Burks in the slot with big old Drake London on one side and big old DPJ on the other side, and then Schwartz running around somewhere in between there. What the hell? Just chuck the fuck up. Just chuck it up there and let's see what the hell happens.
And you know what? That's something that I really took from this playoffs, right? And every playoffs is different every year, right? There's trendy things that are popular. Well, this playoffs, it's quarterbacks airing it out all day long, all game long. It's just throw, unless your name is San Francisco 49ers, right? And so I definitely, after watching that and like watching how these teams win, like what the Browns do is great. And I understand like the running game and Nick Chubb, and I love Nick Chubb. We're huge Nick and Kareem Hunt, but it's clear that they are going to have to pass far more effectively. To get to where we want to go.
Yeah.
Right. Way more.
And having Kareem Hunt back is part of that.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh God, I can't wait.
We are going to, we've got a couple of comments. We're going to bring Ed in here for the final segment as we wrap up. These off-season shows are going to be around an hour. We got some awesome, great shows coming up, guys. We're going to do a For the Fans episode. We did three of them in the off-season. We're going to be doing one of those. I would say it's coming up in the next month or so, so be on the lookout for that fun episode. Cancel Anime says he agrees if Baker turns out to be who we hope he is, which we did talk about on the last episode. He points out none of these quarterbacks could get near him. Maybe I'm 2022 class hater. I think there's some fun prospects in this year. But like last year, you had Trevor Lawrence, right? And I don't like Zach Wilson, but you had Zach Wilson and Trey Lance and Justin Fields. And like you had these guys, you had these guys. I don't know of any of those guys that are like quarterback. When's the last time quarterback didn't go number one overall? I know it's the last 3-4 drafts because you had Trevor Lawrence, Joey B, Kyler Murray, Baker Mayfield.
Garrett? Was it Myles Garrett? Was the last one?
Yeah, I think it is. I think Myles Garrett is the last one.
Yeah, probably is Myles.
So the first one since Myles, there's probably is going to potentially. I don't know. Something goes crazy. Maybe somebody goes.
It's like every year they say this quarterback class, blah blah blah, and then suddenly somebody.
And then 5 of them still go in the top 15.
Yeah. Like Jacob MC Lawrence wants to know about Tyler Huntley. He's a big Tyler Huntley fan, and watching him play this year.
I saw that question. I just now seen that I didn't answer that. If Baker fails, so that's the preference here. Is that if Baker fails. Yeah, sure.
Okay.
I liked him.
Yeah, he was all right.
Yeah, I thought he was fine. I mean, if Baker fails, Like that would be a situation where if you don't have a high enough draft pick to draft a quarterback and you move on from Baker and you sign Tyler Huntley to like a 2-year deal, and then maybe you draft a 3rd or 4th round guy and just kind of roll with it. Yeah, that'd be fun. If Baker doesn't turn out, like, yeah, sure. Hell yeah. That's fun. I like that idea.
You know, it's interesting, right? Because it seems like a lot of these quarterbacks that, you know, everyone wants to trade for right now, all of a sudden it's like, you know, the Vikings get a new coach and it's like, are they really going to want to trade Kirk Cousins away and like start all over again? I mean, like, you know, Josh McDaniels gets the Raiders job, and then you like, well, I mean, does Josh McDaniels take the Raiders job if he doesn't like the quarterback there? Like if he doesn't like Derek Carr?
Well, apparently he's like laid out a plan for that.
So I mean, there's some obviously like Jimmy Garoppolo's.
I was about to say Garoppolo in Vegas.
I'm off. I guess I would take Jimmy Garoppolo, but God, if it's a big price, like I watched him in the playoffs, and I like there's some quarterbacks you say like if the Browns traded for Russell Wilson, and they gave up the multiple 1st round picks, then I'm like, okay, even though Russell's kind of struggled in recent years, like it's still Russell Wilson, and I'll say okay. But like if they give up a bunch of 1st round picks for like Jimmy Garoppolo, I'm like, oh, what is going on? And then Jacob, I know you like Jimmy Garoppolo, but like if they give up like a couple 1st round picks for him, are you still comfortable?
I'm not even giving up one for him.
Yeah, I know.
I'm just saying if they were going to acquire any of them, he was like the one that I liked.
Sure.
But I'm not giving up a 1st round pick.
I don't think he's terrible or anything. I don't
think he's terrible, but he's not 2 1st round picks good. He's not 1 1st round pick good.
Yeah, he's not Matt Stafford price.
No.
At least to me. You know?
Matt Stafford's you can say, oh, well, Matt Stafford, whatever. He's in the Super Bowl, so.
Yeah, give us Deebo Samuel with that as well, and we'll say,
yeah, there you go. Matt Stafford might, you know what, that move, and Matt Stafford might be like the unicorn, like free agent he wasn't a free agent, like quarterback trade that like, I mean, obviously it worked with Peyton Manning, but I can't think of another quarterback that's been traded for in recent years where like, I don't know, they just hit the ground running and been. Wow.
Well, especially from a bad franchise that we kept saying over and over again is, you know, he's a good quarterback just on a bad team. Like all these other quarterbacks like Peyton Manning had success. All these like Tom Brady had success before. He was the one that, you know, we always thought it was because of his non-supporting cast in Detroit. And now that he goes to LA, and he actually did prove that. So, but to your point, Nick, that really hasn't happened a lot in the NFL. And actually he has kind of, you know, opened up GM's eyes like, okay, well maybe same with Derek Carr. Like we keep saying this about maybe if he did go to a team like the Cleveland Browns, he could be, we don't know. And that's obviously up for Andrew Berry and his scouting department to do that, which I do trust him. Like you said, Jacob, you know, Andrew Berry, whatever he does, if he does decide to trade back into the late 1st round and pick one of these quarterbacks, we got to trust them. Like we keep saying, we trust Andrew Berry, trust him. Well, you got to trust them then.
Do I see Garrett Wilson dropping to 13? Yeah, I could see it. I can see it. They'd be stupid to let him fall there, but if he's there at 13, man, I think you turn that card in 22 seconds.
I saw the Jets might get him at like
I saw a mock draft
with their 2nd pick at like 10 or whatever.
Yes, at 10. Yeah, yes. Dicks. But I got to tell you guys, you know, I'm doing a doubleheader today. I would be remiss if I didn't say 10 o'clock. Join Andy, Ross, and Roger and I for the dog chug. We got the Chug O Wheel is coming out tonight. Come have some fun with us. And hey, I might be on the other side of drunk in a couple hours. So
there we go. Love it.
Now.
Love to see it.
Well, guys, yeah. Woo. We are going to have some great guests lined up, guys. We are going to work over some things, get some guests, bring some fans on, all kinds of great things in the next month to talk with you guys. I cannot wait. We're going to have a staff meeting after this, figure out some ground, what we want to do the next couple of weeks, and send out some invites. So guys, I cannot wait for what we have for you guys. I'm so excited to talk to you guys about the Senior Bowl next week. More draft. Join the Patreon. We're going to
Patreon's less than $5. It's $5, people. And you know what? I went to Little Caesars the other day. Hot and fresh, ready pizza.
It's $5.55.
Yeah, it's great. So Patreon's a better deal, guys.
There it is. Yeah.
Saturday.
And you to win a more expensive shirt.
9:30 probably, 9:45 if the Royal Rumble's on again and I'm a little late. 9:30 draft study for the Patreon members live. You can join, ask questions, talk about some safeties. It'll be posted on privately for YouTube later. We love you guys. Nick, get us the hell out of here.
I just want to say one last thing. We've built a whole community with this show of friends that we never had before the show, right? So it's all very recent. And so for anyone listening that is with us all the time, if you're interested in being a part of one of our fan episodes, all of our DMs are open. Because we didn't know how I didn't know if Jacob would become my great friend or Ed would become my great friend.
You might take my job. That's how I started.
Everybody in the dog things are great. We have so many great friends in our group chats because of that stuff. And we never would have known it until you all joined us. So if you're interested in that type of thing, the fan episodes, we love doing them. We love giving back. So always feel free. You can always DM. We all look at them. We'd love to have you. There's a lot of people here that constantly join, and don't think you aren't noticed. It is like we noticed, the people that come back all the time. So thank you. All right. Anybody else got anything? Nope. Good. Okay.
Good.
All right. Well, this has been super fun. This has been episode 41. Did we agree on the Montreal Meander episode?
We did. Reluctantly, we did.
It always also could be Raheem Mostert, who I miss. Kyle Shanahan, working his Browns match.
Travis Prentice, don't forget him. Miami, Ohio.
This has been the 41st episode, of the Barking Browns show. I'm Nick. He's Jacob. That's Ed. Tyler said, "Go Browns."
Go Browns!